Hi guys, and welcome to October, and yay, we are in Libra transit. So happy birthday to all Libras, and let's see what's going on. So really quick intro about astrological constellations and everything that we need to kind of like work on. Guys, do not forget to check your ascendant and check your moon sign, because that's sort of like going to give you different aspects of yourself. And of course, if this jives with you, you can contact me for the private reading. So let's see what is the biggie happening in the sky. And my astrology is really different. You know, nobody's going to tell me this is the way you need to do, because to me, tarot is like so much more potent than astrology. So let's kind of like move into that. This week, both Mercury and in tarot, we have the Magician representing Mercury. So you can actually see the energy instead of just me telling you about Mercury. It's going to move into Scorpio, and that fiery Mars is actually moving in Libra. So Mercury is really, as you know, during Mercury retrograde, communication issues. So yes, it kind of like symbolizes how we talk and think, and how do we really exchange things, how do we communicate, right, with each other, with ourselves, kind of like pulling things together. It kind of like really talks about what we do daily, talks about short trips, and also kind of like trade and commerce and exchanges like of that kind of like sort. Meanwhile, Mars, which actually it's not ruled by Emperor. Oops, wrong, because Aries is kind of like ruler of Mars, but Mars really, and this is going to be hell of a reveal when I tell you. For those of you who know, you already know which card I'm going to pull. This actually is Mars card, Tower. And so Mars is basically all about energy. So when it kind of like occurs in our charts, it's kind of like boosting the activity of this area. So let's put it in perspective, because Mars is now showing up during Libra transition, and this is Libra card. In the background, we just have Saturn that goes direct, that went direct. And so now, if you're on my newsletter, you knew that we actually shifted to new timelines. It was like few things simultaneously happening. And if you felt last month being kind of heavy, and you didn't know what's going on, and you felt like you're climbing the walls and you're just like falling flat down, there was a reason for it. Please sign for my newsletter so you will be in the know. So when we kind of like have the Mars coming through, it's kind of like boosting the chart in our in that area, right? Activity of that area. So we are going to start feeling shift in our daily habits and conversations, and we will become more active in kind of like that area where sort of like that Mars joins the sun, wherever your sun is, and just kind of like you need to remember the secret of life is really having low expectations. With Saturn kind of like that went direct, there are like no procrastination anymore. I think summer was, most of us had the excuse it was the summer, of course, for those of us in northern hemisphere, but in the southern hemisphere, winter was excuse. It's winter, I don't feel like it's sluggish. So we both kind of had the same excuse. But this kind of like all ended on September 18th at 13 degrees Capricorn. And this Saturn is the Lord of Karma, and it kind of like does feel Capricorn is his ruler, but it's almost like the middle finger, right, when it is reversed, right? So retrograde motion is basically time when karma is sorted out, because this is the planet of karma. And so therefore Saturn retrograde is a double dose of that karma. So if you guys didn't get karma reading with me, it's very intense. It really tells you, hey, this is what you did in past life. This is what you promised to yourself. With all the wisdom, you're going to kind of like drag in this one. You want to resolve it. You know, like when we can, today I'm going to really kind of like handle this. That's kind of like it's the entire life chart. So when and what was happening, it kind of like felt that past and present and future kind of like blurred together. And if you have been in the past and kind of like dealing with that, you know, events occurred to teach us a lesson. And Saturn is generally difficult ruler. It's kind of like, did you learn it? I really need you to know. And when I ask you this question, when I wake you up from a dream, you will get it. Not only that you're going to tell me blah, blah, blah. So the lessons that have been associated with Saturn retrograde kind of like really relate to our thoughts and our words. Some of us decided, hey, you know, I'm going to communicate better. I'm not going to be quick to curse. And you're going to see that people will be cleaning their language. People who didn't clean the language, who continues to kind of like be mean and jump quickly to conclusions and to judgments, these people stayed on different old timelines. So what does that mean? That means you still have issues, you didn't resolve them. The bad part is going to last 12 years. So ask yourself if you really shifted or you didn't shift it, or you're just simply repeating the old patterns from the past. This in particular is going to be especially challenging if you have history of teasing or verbally abusing people. And this is becoming very prevalent. All of us kind of a little bit guilty of that. Internet is like a sneaky place where you just want to, you dislike my nail polish. You dislike something. I'm going to just tell you. We need to kind of pull back with Saturn, because Saturn is telling us, really, is this really who you are? And now turning direct is giving us a much brighter outlook, especially for making really important decisions about your home, your family, and relationships. So ta-da, everything is here. And when we are going through Libra transit, it's really talking about a major transformation. So this is where we are almost like, think about it, we have building our case, we kind of like made advances, we kind of like are understanding the areas of life which you kind of like need to do it. The Tower is saying, okay, this is collapsing, and we need to collapse certain areas of our lives and say rebuild, rebuild, rebuild. But then, you know, Mercury is saying to us, you can do it. You have all the tools. You have been through all the lessons. You just need to pull it together, and you need to detangle anything that has been going on. Look at how powerful this month will be. So let's just jump in and see what is particularly important for your own sign. Hello Taurus. Well, we do have a visitor over here. As you noticed, she's going to just have a sip of water, but in the meantime, let's start to see what is up for you this month, right? So this is going to be interesting, first of all, because you're Earth sign, and we are going through kind of like some fiery issues with Mars right now, which is in Libra, and neither of them are sort of like supportive planets or signs, right? So I really think that, however, having said that, that the earth signs are right now going to be in the mode, specifically yours, to kind of like going through clean and declutter. Maybe you're going to come up with some kind of like health plan, right? So keep in mind that it is Sun in Libra until October 23rd, when it kind of like switches forward to Scorpio. So this is really important to understand. And Mars actually entered today, October 4th to 9th, and I did get a bundle over here that came through. So let's see, is this basically everything I need to have? That and more. And of course, I have to figure out the camera. So let's start with this. You have Moon. So this basically talks about this like full moon in Pisces. We just came through it. That was major. If you guys are not on my newsletter list, please kind of like grab it. Go on my website cattarot.ca, because I kind of like really send you when they're really important things, and this is like what it was. I'll be sending one shortly about Pluto. So if you're on my website, just go on the bottom, sign for a newsletter, and you can do that, right? So this is the Moon, and then you have Sky Queen, then you have Five of Earth, Five of Pentacles, the Empress. This actually, funny enough, I was shuffling and this card was coming up, and this is like one of your cards as well that really talks about these comforts. And then you have Five of Sky reversed. So now we have like these two fives over here, and we have Three of Sky, or Three of Swords, Five of Swords, Three of Swords. We have Four of Sky. So this is the Libra energy that is really coming through, and as well as here, you're really connecting that even more. Sky tone, this kind of like it's actually, they're mirroring each other. And the last two would be Six of Earth, or Six of Pentacles, and Two of Fire. So, okay, so let's first and foremost tell you that, I mean, Mars kind of like can get scary for you, especially with you, a high intensity sign, you're fixed sign, so hence with that comes that intensity, like I'm in charging bull kind of a thing. So add fire to it. It's basically even more so. That's corrida at this stage that we are really talking about. Mars is a warrior planet, but when it is in Libra, it is basically talking about a weakened situation, because it's the opposite of basically the house it rules, which is basically when it's sun going through the Aries, right? And Mars tends to kind of like always try to overdo things, right? So hence, for example, if you're going on that health kind of like spree, just make sure that you are doing the proper preparation, that you're taking your vitamins, that kind of like you're nourishing your body that way as well, right? So since basically Libra transit is going through your 6th house, you probably will kind of like try to figure out how to delegate things. So maybe you have somebody who wants to help you, you'll kind of train them. It's almost like, or you might even hire a service and say, you do that. I'm kind of like tired of it. That can be just like as simple as a cleaning lady or a pet walker or something like that, right? You know, maybe you also, if you are an employer, right? I can clearly see that. You might need to let somebody go over here. Or if you're kind of clashing with your boss and you kind of like felt that there were some kind of like currents or undercurrents kind of like going on, and that you really kind of like really didn't like what's going on, basically this is going to make people accountable. So you will have to roll up your sleeves and kind of like move it forward. Or as I said, if this is you, you might let somebody go, or demand that people are learning a new set and kind of like provide you more, right? So, you know, when Mars is in Libra, that is not a comfortable placement, right? As I said, because I kept using this analogy, you having the warrior, like, you know, one of those samurais with the big swords and everything, and the other part of their bedfellow is a hippie. So you can just imagine what kind of like opinions they would have, like, you know, up to each other. Plus, on October 7th, you know, Saturn is going to square your 9th house. And 9th house is like about higher learning, expansion. So this is like about big ideas, right? So because square is always an obstacle, so it's going to look like, you know, the bull just like going straight into the big wall, right? So you will get some pushbacks and you're going to not like it at all. You're going to feel like, why in the world, you know, like, I mean, you would actually really do that. Maybe they're going to say that you're unrealistic. And that can be also in terms of relationships, because I do see here something from the past, guys. Maybe you came into this month from a situation of uncertainty. Maybe you came to this month from the situation of somebody cheating, or somebody kind of like sending you all of these mixed signals. Like one day they lovey-dovey, they love you, oh, I will text you tomorrow and let's do something tomorrow, and then you don't hear from them a month or two or so, and then you rinse and repeat, kind of like this whole kind of like cycle. So that's kind of like going to be very, very interesting, right? So yesterday, October the 3rd, we also had Pluto finally going forward, And if you're listening this at the beginning of me releasing this video, maybe you're feeling, oh my God, you know, maybe I'm going somewhere. But on the same time, keep in mind, this is just right now. We woke up sleeping bear, so we really don't know if this bear is going to be in a good mood or is going to be ready to rumble. So I really think that you, because of your positioning, may really feel that, oh my God, I really cannot talk about it. What basically do I do about it, right? Even though I would really say you have Sky Queen, and she, look at this, even here she's shown like up in the trees. She's looking things from a higher perspective. She kind of like really gets stuff. With her, you kind of like don't have issues, you know, kind of, hey, you know, what will I expect? Is somebody going to give me a big, you know, fluffy runaround story and I will not really find out what they really need to do here, right? No, she's somebody who might not even say much, even though at times she can get very angry. Specifically, maybe if you're going and continuously asking the same question, then it might be like, oh my gosh, which part of it you couldn't understand? I have repeated things to you so many times. Please freaking get it, kind of like it's going to be very, very, very important, right? So this is somebody confident, and maybe it was you. Maybe you had to develop that confidence, because it's going to be really weird during Libra. Like there is like this lovey-dovey and yes, I want to get along, mixed with, look, let's kind of like figure things out, kind of like getting some kind of like assurance, kind of like going into some kind of like, you know, organization. Because this really tells me, and it's a 5 of Earth. And the 5s are never really stable numbers, right? 5s are really talking, so it's better to be on 4. Or like it's almost like you have steps, right? And the 4th step is solid, and then step is missing. Have you ever walked through the forest and kind of like seen things like that? It's just like you're like wary. How do I jump 2 steps? Because you never know how things will really work out for you, right? So 5 and 3 and 7 kind of like would be either wobbly or missing, right? So 5s are one of the most kind of like uncertain, because it's really calling on us to kind of like reach some kind of decision. Look at here. I mean, what is this scene depicting? There is like a kitty outside in the snow, and most of us go, oh, poor kitty, right? Because especially if you come closer, you're going to see, and I don't know if you will be able to see the kitties cuddling inside. There's fireplace, there's food, and they have all of it. I think that kind of like probably want to depict, like, I mean, kind of like catching up with the Joneses kind of a thing. Maybe selfishness, maybe entitlement, right? But look at the jewels and diamonds over here, and the freedom, and the kitty cat can in fact kind of like roam around. So there are like some advantages, right, to this whole situation, right? Same thing here. Here we see Sphinx cat, which we know is blue-blooded cat, pedigree cat, right, entering the territory of these fierce sky cats, right? And you know, the sky cats are basically a clan that was formed just simply to be, let's say, strategic alliance, because they have been betrayed by society, they have been betrayed by their friends, and even though maybe they haven't been betrayed by everyone, they kind of formed an opinion that, hey, you know what, I really don't know if I kind of like really want to trust anymore. So that's kind of that attitude. So whenever they see somebody like that who may represent elite, or who may represent, you know, kind of like moving it forward, you kind of like really have to wonder over here, right? So it is really interesting when this reverses, and it's also reversing your central figure into your central card, and it's kind of coupled with 3 of Swords. And here, look at this. You know how cats are, they kind of like knock down anything they have in their path. We can see here quite a few things that can be knocked down, right? Look at the crystal is going to fall, and we see quite a bit of the damage made here. Now this is becoming to me very interesting because look, we have the Empress tree, like this protective quality of protecting about you, protecting your children. This can also talk about, as I said, improving new skills, kind of like pushing things really forward, which will be very, very important. But here it looks like that you are, some of you at the very least, are dealing with still some kind of heartache. Heartache that maybe has been caused by a third party. Maybe it hasn't been necessarily cheating, but it kind of like really felt that was like that sharp edge where, you know, the only medicine was like, I really need to stop because, oh my gosh, I cannot even breathe about this whole situation. So it kind of like really felt deep and piercing, right? Now, interestingly enough, in spite of all of it over here, I do see a possible reunion. And, right, Safi? Do you see that too? Yes or no? Yes, yes, you do. So, with this, it looks like it's one of those pragmatic choices. Maybe this card simply meant really you have been the one outside. You kind of like had to kind of like try to figure out how to deal with things and how to look, you know, how to figure out how to resolve the situation. Now, maybe you're letting this person back in, but have you really think this through enough? Because it doesn't show me that you're really establishing any kind of like grounds. Maybe this kind of like what it means that you have already kind of like set it in your head in order for us to get back together. This and this has to happen, right? And then the Empress card that we see over here. Come on, Safi, can you please come here so I can read for Taurus, because you're covering all the cards. I know you're bringing them luck, but I really want to see the cards. So let's see how that play would work. You see, this means to me that you are saying to yourself, look, I'm reaching comfort in who I am and how I deal with things, right? It's almost like there is like some sense of balance, and there is like this sense, hey, this time I'm going to kind of like make impossible possible. It's kind of like to you like that security that you're like tapping into your earth sign. It's going down to being pragmatic. It's going down, maybe you're saying to somebody, hey, we have a family together. That is important. These children are yours as well. Is this really how you want to be memorized? Is this really how you want to be observed? Don't you realize, like, I mean, what you're doing, like that is like really something that you have to absorb. Maybe you're putting your own needs aside in order kind of like to really understand that maybe there is like, I mean, bigger picture over here, and you really want to kind of like do something in the interest of everybody, right? So also understand that on the 13th we are having full moon in Aries. That is falling into your 12th house, and 12th house is always about hidden agendas. It's also about endings, but it's also a very powerful portal, right? So keep in mind that the next month, I believe November 11th or 12th, is going to be full moon in Taurus, which is going to be the full cycle. So this 12th house is always very important. It's kind of like wrapping up all the gifts that you really need to do. So you really have to figure out what is it in your life that you really have to put kind of like on the shelf, and it's really not going to be that important. It was something that has been brewing, like, I mean, since probably your birthday, right? So I really think it's also time to really, because it's spirituality house as well, to kind of like say, universe, what are you really telling me, right? Don't force things, as we fixed signs usually tend to do, right? So the full moon, so now that's really getting interesting when it comes to Taurus astrologically, right? That is going to square, which is kind of like a 90-degree kind of like thing, to Pluto. And we are actually just going with this Pluto forward, right? And it started to go retrograde in your sign on April 24th, right? So when this starts to form this square, that really talks about some kind of like hidden information coming to light. you're getting really freaked out and really, really tired about some kind of situation, right? But this may actually change the course of events for you. So that can provide you a clue whether or not you wish to continue with this person, you wish to continue on this particular journey, or maybe it's going to be something that you will decide, hey, you know what, let's have this conversation, and maybe at the very least that's going to bring me closure. And I was waiting, I was patient, but I'm not that patient. So let's see, what else do we have? So interestingly enough, you will become more vocal about that, right? And I really think that's going to be somewhere, let's say October 23rd, and the sun starts being in Scorpio at that stage, and this is now falling in your 7th house of partnerships, which is really, really good, right? So it is Scorpio new moon, October 27th, I believe, and that, I really feel it can actually bring somebody completely new to your life. There is like some really, really good development. There's like something moving forward, and I also see that application of all of these, let's say, learned things on all of these discussions at this stage moving forward, whether this is like business or pleasure. So maybe like you let somebody in and you were saying, well, let's just keep it under the wraps. I just want to see if it's going to kind of like stick this time around, but now you're making it official, kind of a thing, right? So it's going to be really interesting because this new moon is kind of like opposing Uranus, which is in Taurus, and this kind of like falls into your house of identity and a house of soul adventures. So any relationship that is coming to your life, and frankly guys, it could be air sign in Libra, like you really would be open to ideas, you would be open to that intel that is really coming to you, right? So I really also think with this much air, ta-da, so we have 3, 4, 5, it kind of like it feels one step forward, one step backward, right? But I also think because air is a kind of like almost like a lift-off energy, that it's going to almost like expose some kind of like individuality, right? So you might kind of like change, I don't know, like a decoration of your home. You might even change your lifestyle, and that lifestyle, and trust me, I'm Aquarius, is not going to be, I'll put every penny aside, because like, I mean, when you live this air lifestyle, you're like, I mean, really gripping your hands around the seat of your pants, like, I mean, to see how you get there, but somehow you do get there, right? So it's kind of not knowing the entire path, knowing partial things, right? So given that this is not natural to you, that you kind of like going that speed, because imagine somebody's driving your car and you're comfortable with, let's say 30 kilometers or 30 miles per hour, and somebody pressed on the pedal and all of a sudden you're going 100. It's like, whoa, correct, it's white knuckles and everything. And that's kind of like how it's going to feel. And I can see that quite a few of you are going to have, the words that might be, some curse words that somebody's going to be on the receiving end. But at the same time, you'll kind of like maybe go in a little bit of analysis paralysis, which can really talk about, hey, you know what, like, I mean, I really don't feel comfortable with this, and how do we do? Maybe you're asking for too much advice. Maybe you are putting like too much, like, I mean, your foot on the brake when certain things happen. But please, don't be too hard on yourself, right? And you never know, maybe you are going to be the one who will be hard on the others, because this is pretty much what people hate about air signs, that air signs kind of like generally don't have much willingness to put some great diplomacy to something, and they are like more committing to really fast resolutions. So it's either fast or nice, kind of like an option. So you might fall kind of like into that, but to be kind of like fair, the reason why you would fall into that is because you're so freaking fed up with everything, and you try nice, and you try it again, and you try it again, and you try it again, and what did you get? Nothing, right? Now, there are like some really good news here as well, because very end of the month, Halloween, is also when Mercury goes retrograde. Well, it goes in the shadow before then, around 11th, 12th, I believe. But that's Mercury is a trickster planet, right? So of course it's going to your 8th house, and so it's going to be October 31st, so 3 weeks to November 20th. So this is like communication, travel, technology, and also like what is basically happening kind of day to day in our lives, right? So I would create all of these circumstances and everything that you're going on in this high gear, also to create some kind of protection, create your home security system, put passwords, change passwords, back up your data. Because for you in particular, especially if you're dealing with something legal, which I kind of like see that some of you might be doing something, if you're prepared properly, and if you have already kind of like making your kind of like steps toward something, I really think that they will going to come handy, and that you might come to some kind of like negotiation and settlement. It still might be ongoing at the end of the month, right? But also this at the same time, this kind of like indecision, well, shall I stay, shall I go, and how do I go about it, can also kind of create those like second thoughts about somebody who maybe you have letting carefully back in your life, or maybe somebody who, you know, just reappeared. You will be very finicky, and this is kind of like that, you know, Libran energy, but it's also kind of like this whole kind of like ripple effect of all these retrogrades. And retrograde that we are entering end of the month usually brings us back to the past, just like now going forward with Pluto is making us move forward, and yet kind of like finishing this entire cycle. So proceed with caution. This is really, really important than rushing in and jumping the gun. I really think that's going to be sort of like the lesson of the month. But one thing is really, really important here is the Empress, that your card is showing up here nicely and prominently, right? Your aspiration is like that you come to the top. You know, that positivity, I'm not one of those readers, as you can tell, as I don't sugarcoat, who would just always just tell you, well, just think positive, everything will work out. Actually, this is possibly the stupidest thing anybody can say. I do believe that positioning and hopefulness and optimism is really important, but I also think pragmatism is important equally as much. And I really think I shouldn't be really, you know, preaching to the choir over here, because you are a very pragmatic sign. You're really going with what works, and you are almost like refocusing yourself to things that are working for you. Almost looks like your family, your close ones. I don't know, some of you might actually become very creative, because the Empress also rules writing, right? And she is manifestation, and if you're female, this really means that you're going to feel and experience comfort zone. If you're a man, you'll be really seeing somebody in your life who is or should be placed on a pedestal. So this also kind of like usually calls to, hey, you know what, let's reconnect. And you might even want to spend some time outside, because the Empress also rules natural world. So guys, take a breather when you need to. You, after all, have this 4 of sky, which is, again, remember how I said 5 is like wobbly, but 4, and you have 5, and you have a 5, and you have a 3 over here, and then you have a 3, right? It's over here, so 9 as well. So you can tell, and these are like, I mean, court cards, so they don't count. So you have 2 cards out of 9 that sort of like are leading somewhere. This is really talking about generosity, where it can talk about, you know, giving and receiving. But what is really interesting to me about these 2 cards, they're also talking about comfort of your own home. This is also kind of like making this decision between the old and new, But this, look at this. Isn't this like the beautiful thing to fall asleep in a lavender field? What can be better than that? If you need to relax and if you need to pamper yourself, and that's usually what Empress does as well, make sure you do that. And make sure that you kind of like look all the different sides of the consequences of your actions, both in kind of like business, career, and in relationships, in order to push it forward. So be realistic. This is like what would be a long aim, but this is what I really want this month, because I really believe it's going to bring you better results. So I would like to know here, guys, who is this person you're letting in your life, or how you're dealing with this high tone, maybe really kind of like rambunctious, very intelligent person who is talking a lot, who knows a lot about lots of things. Are you feeling lost, or are you feeling pressured? Because that's going to be really interesting how you will react to this energy. So my dear Taurus, all the best. Please like and share. Also check your ascendant and check your moon sign. It's going to give you way more details about your read. And lastly, yeah, if you want a reading with me, kikettarot.ca. And please click and share and subscribe. YouTube is wreaking havoc. Like last night I released Pisces, and like within minutes my subscriber count went down 500. I was like, what? And I was like taking screenshots of that, like messaging like my brother, what's going on with that? And minutes later is like up thousands. So like something is going on, and I really need that consistency that I'm advising you for it. So I would really appreciate your help, guys. And until the next time, Taurus, you know that I love you. All the best.